Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking a
categorically,
question. Don't
Mr.
be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You are
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can
No,
you
I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today and thank you for networking this information to all those you know and love. The more people that become educated with the facts and the truth, information that what we call the bought-off lamestream fake media, a tentacle of the deep state, does not want you to know, the more people that become empowered. And the sooner we can break this reign of terror by the deep state. The presentations I do, whether it's the 3-hour radio show on Sundays, which you can stream live through from 2 to 5 Eastern by clicking the Listen Live button at davejanda.com, or the 4 or 5 other video shows I do at davejanda.com. That content I cannot discuss on social media platforms or on the radio. And the reason is because of the incredibly vice-like grip the censorship operation has over content. I find a way on the social media platforms and on the radio to get information out, to put people ahead of the curve. On the social media side and on the radio side, days down the line ahead of the curve, maybe a week or two. But where I really make a huge difference is those that consume the content at davejanda.com. It puts people's months and years ahead of the curve. Many of the subscribers at davejanda.com tell me that the information that we provided so far ahead of the curve has saved their lives, have saved their families' lives. Some people believe that might be an overstatement, but I believe they're telling the truth, so they can pre-position themselves. But I cannot provide that content because of the choke points in social media platforms. Or, and we're blessed at Wham Talk 1600 where there's no restrictions on the content we provide, but the FCC that oversees all radio stations has huge choke points in them. And if I go there, I would sacrifice the radio station, which is why I reserve it out of protection, actually, for davejanda.com, where through our IT team, we have the very safe and very secure website with the content that's protected. Many people believe that when you put out content to the public, you just sit down and you do it. Look, behind every one of my videos, there are many hours of research through getting in touch with my contacts and checking and rechecking the information. Same is true on the radio show. For every hour on the radio, there's about 6 to 8 hours of prep work behind each hour on the radio every week. And I would not be able to do this, and it costs a lot of money to have a safe and secure website done the right way. And we run the website at a break even. Break even. But if it were not for 3 entities, there would be no website with incredible content, no videos on any social media platform, and there would be no radio show. The 3 entities are subscribers to the premium service content at davejanda.com. They ante up a minimal 30 cents a day, $9 a month, for priceless content that covers our overhead. $9 a month. In this day and age, that's less than a half of a pizza. And they're getting information that they say has saved their lives. If you're not a subscriber, why not? Why? Is it that you don't value what we do and how we do it? If so, I'm sorry you feel that way. I believe you're very wrong. But then again, I could be considered very biased on this. I think your life is worth more than $9 a month. The other entities that support what we do are two companies in particular. Both companies have developed lifeboats to protect you. And they've taken their resources and invested them in our platform to cover expenses. Camino Company, C-A-M-I-N-O, CaminoCompany.com for your precious metals lifeboat. The best people, the most honest people, the most transparent people that give the best prices. CaminoCompany.com. Adriana Reed, one of the principals who I've done a number of interviews with, she's the best in the business, I believe. Honesty, integrity, straightforwardness. Contact them, tell them. At a minimum, you appreciate them supporting a freedom-based platform. But I also encourage you to utilize their services to protect you from Camino standpoint for your financial freedom. And from Numana, NUMANNA.com, for storable food and storable water. Now, it's interesting. Most people will say, well, I live in North America. I live in the West, Western Europe or Australia. That's for third world situations. Really? Just look at it from a natural disaster standpoint. Hurricanes, tornadoes, forest fires, mudslides, floods, grid outages. I have been contacted by hundreds of people over the years that said, thank God I listened to Dan Brigman from Numana. And I had storable food and storable water because my relatives and my neighbors, they had nothing and they were in big trouble. I ended up sharing some with them, but if it were not, our family would be in huge trouble. Dan Brigman and his group at Numana have gone out of their way to make it affordable. So when you go to Numana.com, put in the coupon code JANDA when you check out, you get 10% off on your food buckets. I encourage you to do so. Every single one of us needs to stay ahead of their curve. Plus, their food is really good, and their water products about purification. You need to have it. Anyone who's been through, a grid failure contacts me and said, boy, I don't know why I didn't realize this, but when the grid went down, we didn't have any water. We had, and yeah, I have a lake not too far from me or a stream, but, contaminants. Thank God I had that purification system through Numana. Right. I encourage you to do that. Though, and at a minimum, contact CaminoCompany.com or Numana.com and thank them for supporting the freedom-based platform. But I encourage you to utilize their products. And if you're going to rely on the government to save and protect you, well, I'm not sure that's a good idea. No, I know it's not a good idea. Because the presentation today is about the fraud of our, in quote, democracy, end quote. It's a fraud. In the United States, it's not a democracy. We all know it's a constitution. Well, not all of us. All of you who listen to this platform know it's a constitutional republic. But I can tell you about 99% of the people you know, if you said, are we a constitutional republic or a democracy? They'll tell you a democracy. Concerning the state, this is from Gary Barnett, there are no accidents, no coincidences, and no natural emergencies or threats. All is planned. Remember that in the coming weeks and months. Okay? Once again, everything in politics and government is planned in advance, is not accidental. Any coincidence, natural or organic, is all staged in one way or another to either affect a certain outcome or cover up another. Believe nothing in the mainstream or government. Trust nothing, question everything, and never accept any reports unless you can verify the real facts. in order to find the truth. As I.F. Stone once said, quote, all governments are run by liars and nothing they say should be believed. Right on topic. Defining a constitutional republic. The United States operates not as a democracy, but as a constitutional republic, a form of government that involves representatives elected, let's use that term loosely, especially of late, right? As opposed to installed, elected by the people who execute their duties under the constraints of a prevailing constitution that specifies the powers and limits of government. Limits of government. One more time. Limits of government. One fundamental principle of a constitutional republic is the protection of minority rights against the potential tyranny of the majority. This design, constitutional republic, design counters direct democracy where majority rules, which could potentially ride roughshod over minority interests. And therein lies how we are a constitutional republic. What did Ben Franklin say when he walked out of Independence Hall and a woman stopped him? What have you wrought, Mr. Franklin? A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it. Well, if you can keep it, we're close to losing it. And that's not an accident. And it's not a coincidence, as Gary Barnett said. And it's not from incompetence. It's willful. They're counting on you to be mute, to lock yourself down, to put yourself under house arrest, to sit on the couch and consume their propaganda 24/7, and to be afraid. Above all, to be afraid. If you want to undo their operation, don't be afraid. Don't sit on the couch. Don't consume their propaganda. Don't put yourself under house arrest. Don't lock yourself down, and use your God-given abilities to speak to others, to educate and empower them. Dr. Mike Rechtenwald, one of the regulars on our Operation Freedom platform, recently wrote the following. As if we needed further confirmation, the recent and mysterious withdrawal of Joe Biden from the presidential race, when he issued a post on X, formerly Twitter, on Sunday, July 21st, not on official White House or presidential letterhead, but rather under a Joseph R. Biden Jr. masthead, is proof positive that our, quote, our democracy, end quote, mantra, endlessly mouthed by establishment shills, has been nothing but utter doublespeak and an attempt at mass deception. Notwithstanding the fact that the United States of America is not a democracy, but a constitutional republic, the deep state Democrats heading the Uniparty have demonstrated that they are nothing but anti-democratic frauds posing as protectors of a pro-democratic stronghold against the forces of fascism, totalitarian dictatorship, or whatever other hyperbolic rhetoric and misdirection they use to deflect from their own dictatorial rule. But never in my life have the questions of, quote, who's in charge exactly, end quote, and, quote, what are they doing, end quote, been more conspicuous. An apparent coup and its cover-up are being orchestrated before our very eyes. No longer can anyone in their right mind think that, quote, our democracy, end quote, means anything other than the pathocracy, masked ever so thinly by the spectacle of so-called democracy, in quotes. And this from Ryan McKeon. The Party of Democracy will now choose your candidate for you. As Rechtenwald noted on July 21st, Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 presidential campaign via text-only post on Twitter. Less than an hour later, Biden, also via text only on Twitter, endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for the presidency. Thus, in just a few short minutes, the ruling party in Washington completely erased the primary election process from one of the country's major parties. They actually tried to erase it from the other party the week before on J13 in Butler, PA. Not an accident, not a coincidence, not from incompetence. That is the same Democratic Party that tells us it is the party of, quote, democracy, end quote, just completely cut ordinary voters out of the election process for the Democratic nominee. So after denying Democratic voters the chance to vote on Kennedy or anyone else, the party has now also denied the voters the chance to vote on Harris or whoever else the party elites will decide is the nominee in 2024. It is now clear that to be in favor of democracy in 2024 is to support whatever the ruling party elites want you to support. To be pro-democracy now apparently means to vote for the candidates selected for you by party elites in secret behind-the-curtain meetings. According to the ruling elites, in a true democracy, no voting is allowed. Speaking of no voting, when Biden held his Oval Office address, remember we babbled about why he was not going to seek re-election. From Zero Hedge, quote, we settle, and this is Biden, we settle our differences at the battle, B-A-T-T-L-E, battle box. End quote. Biden Oval Office speech marred. This from by the latest huge gaffe. Maybe it wasn't such a gaffe. The battle, not ballot, battle box. It's a battle for our constitutional republic. What they're trying to do, right? From Zero Hedge, Biden said political differences should be settled at the quote battle box, end quote. He then paused, and so it seemed like recognition of his error, only to reiterate the idea, and then again seemed to say battle box. The battle box was far from his only stumble. Biden has been at the forefront of a leftist campaign to turn up the temperature on American politics by casting Trump as a unique danger to the country, one whose re-election could mean the 2024 election is actually our last. Biden's speech also contained a fluffy line clearly written by people with little grasp of the history of America's founding. He said, quote, you know, from the beginning our founders understood the power of passion, so they created democracy. No. Here's a president of the United States, reportedly, that doesn't know that we're a constitutional republic. Yeah, but so does 99% of the people in our country not know that. And that's by design. He said, you know, from the beginning, our founders understood the power of passion, so they created democracy. That gave reason and balance a chance to prevail over brute force. To the contrary, because they understood the power of passion, the founders were extremely wary of democracy. In a pure democracy, passions can put political minorities in grave peril. Which is why, folks, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights contain various safeguards against a, quote, tyranny of the majority, end quote. The founders sought reason and balance by veering away from democracy and instead instituting a representative republic with a federal government whose powers were supposedly to be and remain, quote, few and defined. Unfortunately, our republic is in the ICU. It's not dead. They want you to believe it's dead. It's not. But it's in the ICU. And the only way we get ourselves out of the ICU is through shock therapy. Shocking all those around us. Family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, maybe even people we don't know. You know, I have this habit. When I go to get gas, when I go to the grocery store, when I go to places of business, I carry a card with me with website names on it. DaveJanda.com, SarahWestall.com, Technocracy.news, LibertySentinel.com, BillHolter.com. obviously davejanda.com. And I when I'm pumping gas, I'll say, wow, look at these prices. This is crazy. Usually somebody on the other end goes, you're right, they're crazy. I go, I've been trying to figure out why prices are so high, and the information I get through what some people still call the mainstream media isn't giving me the answers, but I did find some websites where I got some really good information. Really, what are they? Oh, I have this little card. Here you go. Hey, thanks. Do the same thing at the grocery store. You see, the way we save our constitutional republic and get it out of the ICU is shocking people with truth and facts and data, and when needed, science. I've mentioned this before, but a good friend of mine who's actually been on our show many times, Lieutenant Colonel Craig Roberts. Craig is a former Tulsa police officer, ran the SWAT program there, decorated United States service member in the Marines and Army. He was one of the lead snipers in the military, still trains them. And Craig reminds us constantly that there are two types of birds in life: eagles and ostriches. The fact that you're listening to this presentation, you're an eagle. You're ahead of the game. You have incredible vision. But the vast majority of people you know, many of whom you might even love, are ostriches. And the way we preserve our constitutional republic and get it out of the ICU is transforming all those that are ostriches into being fellow eagles. And we do that by educating them and empowering them. Because once people become educated to what's really happening, and not the propaganda they're getting through the bought-off lamestream fake media, whether it's the boob tube or through newspapers or syndicated radio, magazines. See, as soon as they divorce themselves from the propaganda and they're provided with the truth, what's really occurring, there's a transformation. And this is what the syndicate does not want. From being ostriches whose heads are in the sand to being eagles and flying high and saving our constitutional republic. Democracy, it is a fraud. But our constitutional republic is sick, but it's not a fraud. And we need to do everything possible to get it out of the ICU. And that's where you come in. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7. I do another 4 to 5 video shows a week, my 3-hour radio show. Please join us. Become part of our freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.